We cannot afford to delay any longer. The evidence is clear and the consequences are dire. We must act now.
I was unloading camping gear from my truck when I heard the sharp crack of a hand hitting flesh, followed by my wife screaming. And I turned to see a stranger in a black tactical vest standing in our driveway with his hands still raised while Jade held her face and stumbled backward. My name is Donovan Wright, and I am a 37-year-old active duty Army Master Sergeant serving with the 75th Ranger Regiment at Fort Benning, Georgia, where I have spent the past 16 years in special operations conducting missions that required absolute discipline, split-second tactical decisions, and the ability to control violence with surgical precision rather than explosive chaos. My training had taught me to assess threats instantly, respond with exactly appropriate force, and maintain operational control even when adrenaline demanded I destroy the threat completely. I was built compact and efficient from years of special operations physical training. Not bulky but functionally strong in ways that mattered for carrying equipment over long distances and maintaining combat effectiveness for extended periods. My expertise was in small unit tactics, close quarters combat, and leadership under the most intense pressure imaginable, but none of that training mattered in the 2 seconds it took my brain to process that a stranger had just struck my wife in our own driveway while I was 10 feet away. The only thing that mattered was the cold rage that settled over me, tempered by 16 years of learning to control violence rather than be controlled by it. But nothing in my 16 years of special operations had prepared me for how hard it would be to maintain that control when every instinct screamed to end the threat that had just assaulted the woman I loved. I dropped the camping gear and moved toward them with purpose but not panic, my training overriding emotion. Jade was holding her left cheek, tears streaming down her face, her expression showing shock and pain. The man who had struck her was tall and heavy, maybe 50 years old with gray hair, wearing a black tactical vest with fake patches and a clipboard in his other hand. A second man in similar gear stood near a dark truck watching. "Get away from my wife," I said, my voice carrying the command authority that made Rangers respond instantly during operations. Right now. The man who had slapped Jade turned toward me with arrogance that suggested he thought he controlled this situation. "Sir, your wife assaulted an HOA enforcement officer." I defended myself using appropriate force. "She is being cited for assault and obstruction." I looked at Jade, who was 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighed maybe 120 pounds. A kindergarten teacher who spent her days helping 5-year-olds learn to read. The idea that she had assaulted anyone was absurd and offensive. "What happened?" I asked Jade, keeping myself between her and the man who had hit her. "I was getting the mail and he stopped me saying we had violations," Jade said through tears, her voice shaking. "I told him we do not have an HOA and asked him to leave. He said I was interfering with official business. When I took out my phone to call you, he slapped me and said I was assaulting him by refusing to cooperate." The man stepped forward, holding his clipboard like authority. "I am Officer Rutherford Mason with Creekside HOA Enforcement Division. Your wife became verbally abusive and physically aggressive when I attempted to issue violation citations. I used minimal necessary force to defend myself from assault. She is being detained pending arrival of law enforcement to press charges." Every word was designed to justify violence against my wife while claiming official authority he did not possess. I looked at the red mark on Jade's face where he had struck her hard enough to leave visible injury. I looked at his hand, still positioned aggressively. And I made a tactical decision that I pulled out my phone and called 911 while maintaining visual contact with both men. "This is Master Sergeant Donovan Wright at 2743 Oakwood Drive. A man just assaulted my wife by slapping her in the face. I need police and I need them now. I am active duty military with the 75th Ranger Regiment. The suspect is still on scene." The 911 dispatcher's tone changed when I identified as Rangers. "Sergeant, units are responding code 3. Are you or your wife injured?" "My wife has visible injury to her face where she was struck. The suspect is claiming to be HOA enforcement. I am maintaining visual contact but not engaging physically unless he attempts to flee or assault my wife again. Sergeant, officers are 2 minutes out. Do not engage unless necessary for defense." Rutherford tried to leave, walking toward his truck. I moved to block his path without touching him. "You are not leaving. You assaulted my wife. Police are en route." You will explain to them why you struck a military spouse. The second man, who I later learned was Ambrose Locke, moved toward me aggressively. That was a tactical error. My training assessed the threat instantly. Two suspects, one showing aggressive movement, confined space, need to control without injury while protecting my wife, that I used a basic Ranger combatives technique, redirecting Ambrose's forward momentum with minimal force and guiding him to the ground in a control position that immobilized him without causing injury. The entire movement took less than 2 seconds. Ambrose was face down on my driveway with his arms controlled before he understood what had happened. "Do not move," I said calmly. "I have you in a restraint position. If you struggle, you will hurt yourself. Stay still." Rutherford froze, clearly recognizing that I was not a regular civilian and that attempting to flee or fight was not going to work. Columbus police arrived 90 seconds later, 3 units responding to assault on a military spouse. Officer Parrish emerged first and immediately assessed the situation. Me maintaining control of one suspect on the ground, the second suspect standing motionless, and my wife holding her face with visible injury. "Sergeant Wright?" Officer Parrish asked. "Yes, sir. The suspect in the vest struck my wife in the face approximately 4 minutes ago. When his partner attempted to interfere with my 911 call, I restrained him using military combatives. Neither suspect is injured. My wife has visible injury to her face from being slapped." Officer Parrish examined Jade's face, the red mark clear and obvious. "Ma'am, did this man strike you?" "Yes," Jade said, her voice still shaking. "I was getting mail and he said we had violations. When I took out my phone, he slapped me." Officer Parrish turned to Rutherford with cold professionalism. "Sir, you struck this woman? She was assaulting me by refusing to cooperate with official HOA enforcement," Rutherford said, still trying to maintain his story. "I defended myself by slapping a woman half your size." Officer Parrish replied, "That is assault. You are under arrest." As officers handcuffed both suspects, a detective named Esther Crane arrived. When she learned I was active duty Rangers and that my wife had been assaulted, she took detailed statements and photographed Jade's injury carefully. "Sergeant Wright, assault on a military spouse is taken very seriously. We will prosecute this aggressively. Additionally, I am notifying Fort Benning Military Police because crimes against military families are investigated jointly." Fort Benning Criminal Investigation Division was notified. CID investigates serious crimes involving military personnel and their families. When a Special Operations soldier's wife was assaulted, CID responded. CID Special Agent Morrison arrived within 2 hours. He interviewed me, Jade, and reviewed the evidence. "Sergeant Wright, assaulting a Ranger's wife while he was present shows either incredible stupidity or complete ignorance of who they were targeting. We will coordinate with civilian prosecutors and ensure this is prosecuted as assault on a military family." The investigation revealed Rutherford and Ambrose had been running fake HOA scams across Columbus and Fort Benning area, specifically targeting military families when soldiers were deployed or in training. But they had encountered an active duty Ranger who was home, witnessed the assault, and responded with professional restraint that gave prosecutors perfect evidence. The leverage was significant. CID explained to Rutherford and Ambrose that they faced state assault charges plus potential federal charges for targeting military families. Additionally, assaulting a Special Operations soldier's wife brought attention from the military community that made their prosecution a priority. The trial took place 8 months later in Muskogee County. Jade testified about being slapped unprovoked. I testified about witnessing the assault and restraining Ambrose without injury when he attempted to interfere. Police testified about the scene and evidence. Medical experts testified about the injury to Jade's face. Military family advocacy representatives testified about the targeting of military spouses. The prosecution emphasized Rutherford had struck a kindergarten teacher who weighed barely over 100 pounds, claiming she assaulted him, while her Special Operations husband watched. The absurdity and cruelty of that claim was obvious. The defense tried to argue Rutherford felt threatened. The evidence destroyed that defense. Jade was getting mail. She took out her phone. He slapped her. There was no threat, only violence. The jury deliberated 90 minutes. Guilty on all counts, including assault on a female. Sentencing was harsh. Rutherford received 14 years in state prison with enhancements for assault on military spouse. Ambrose got 9 years as an accomplice. 3 months later, Jade and I were having dinner when she brought up the incident. Donovan, when he slapped me and I looked over and saw you, I knew he had made a terrible mistake. Not because you would hurt him, but because you would make sure he faced justice. 16 years in Rangers, I said. I have been trained to respond to threats with controlled precision. When he slapped you, every instinct wanted me to end him. But my training controlled that. I called police, documented everything, restrained Ambrose without injury when he interfered, and let the system handle it. That is what special operations discipline means. Controlling violence, not being controlled by it. He is in prison for 14 years, she said quietly. He assaulted a military spouse in front of her Ranger husband. The military community made sure he was prosecuted fully, and he learned that targeting military families brings consequences most criminals never face. If you or a military family member is assaulted or targeted by criminals, report to both civilian police and military CID immediately, as joint investigations ensure maximum prosecution. Share experiences in comments. Hit subscribe for more stories about military families protected by both civilian and military justice. Remember that assault on military spouses carries enhanced penalties, and military investigations add federal leverage. Special operations training means controlled professional response, not uncontrolled violence. Let the system work while military community ensures justice.